Nancy Pelosi has moved on from children getting hungry to children getting munchies as she's moved from stimulus to now a pot bill. Seriously. The new focus of the Democrats next week will be pot, not stimulus. But some viewers think this is positive news because maybe, perhaps, finally, Steve and Nancy will get relaxed. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is LALATE, and boy, stimulation is very well needed. Whether it's with some pot bills or not, this is LALATE Afternoons every day at 3:30 Pacific Standard Time. That starts with a check, then hazard pay, then FPUC, and then finally rent, a new video every 30 minutes. Part of our 3.5-hour programming block every day here on LALATE. I'm so happy you joined me. I'm very blessed for you to join me. And as always, drop your comments below. I might feature them in tomorrow's recording. And subscribe and like this video. Let me get to the incredible details that I'll be going over today about stimulus checks. First, executive order. Second, new data about what the Federal Reserve might be doing for you next week. That's sort of interesting. Third, new suggestions of whether or not Trump's focus is on stimulus or curbing dissent among his cabinet members. Okay. And finally, what you should expect this weekend. Let me start with actually the end of that. All eyes still remain focused on actually this afternoon, Friday afternoon. We made it to the weekend. We're not focused on getting some pot bill, but focused on the potential of you know who talking about you know what and you know where. Viewers of this channel are fully abreast and informed and ready to go at the moment's whim if the president comes out with an executive order this weekend. And they have commented extensively in the comments of this channel that viewers always thought that stimulus checks would come by executive order, not by acts of Congress. Also, some viewers think that that could come this weekend. I'm not going to co-sign that. I really do think the president has a few weeks to get this done and doesn't have to get it done today or this weekend. And so if we go to Saturday evening and Sunday morning and you have not seen executive order, I don't want you to lose faith because I don't think this is the make or break weekend whatsoever for a stimulus check executive order or FPUC executive order. But what we do have, though, remains focus on really one path and only one path as we sit here on a Friday afternoon to get you stimulus checks ASAP, and that is executive order. There doesn't appear to be, as we sit here this afternoon, any path for you to get you stimulus checks by act of Congress. The president has the authority, the president has the money, the president has the whim, and the president has said he has the wishes, saying it every single week, every single month, since the month of June all the way up to the present, to give you stimulus checks. So will he finally act on his words this weekend, next weekend, or the weekend after? We will see. You know, anyone else would have taken their time and edited in every single time that the president has said, I'm giving you stimulus checks since June. He's literally said it every single week, but has yet to deliver. And anyone else would have taken their time to run Mnuchin and Meadows and McConnell and Kudlow's remarks in the last week promising you that you're going to get stimulus checks approved by law next week in a bill to be introduced this week. Instead, we got no bill, we got no law, we barely even got a sentiment of support. What we did get going to the weekend is a ghost town. We really have no one of this group talking about stimulus checks. We don't have Meadows, we don't have Mnuchin, we have no one coming out and even talking about what happened this week. It's as though it never happened, which as a reporter delivering you the updates, it's a little peculiar. I have to go and get updates for you on things about what's happening with stimulus checks from people other than the ones that promised you the stimulus checks this week. So as we start the weekend, where do we sit? Well, As you saw in Morning's LALATE, there's an effort by lobbyists, not for stimulus checks, but lobbyists for airlines to take that $300 billion the president has identified for stimulus checks and get it routed to the airlines, not you. Oh, yes. There's a move by a lot of strong groups to grab money that's sitting around there and get it to themselves. And this is a severe threat. It's not something I'm going to sugarcoat. It's not what I do on this channel. So I want you to understand that there's money out there that can come to you for stimulus checks, that the president says he wants to give it to you for stimulus checks. But there's big lobbyists trying to grab your money and take it for themselves. Ugh. Of course, where's Nancy Pelosi? Next week, she'll be starting on a pot bill. That's her top priority after postal. Now it's pot. And next week, it'll be another P after that. It is so insanely ridiculous that there's even news reports out now talking, and these are not, these are mainstream news reports. It says they can foresee the Republican ad commercials this fall talking about how Democrats didn't give you stimulus, they gave you pot. As I said in the opening, instead of children going hungry, children going munchies is the new focus of Nancy Pelosi. That is that. But it's her focus, and apparently it's not the focus of her party. Big calls happened yesterday among leading Democrats to Pelosi's office to say, this is enough, it's enough. You have to do something. You can't keep on doing this. And they basically said what I have been reporting for a while, is that as 300 to 400 congressional leaders that are all Democrats say, you can't have us go into a fall election with no stimulus package approved. It is simply political suicide. To which she said, and she's certainly not up for re-election, and she may be retiring as well, she said, well, I can't do something like that you want, because that would be like a cheap date. At this point, anyone's happy to have a cheap date. Anyone's actually happy to have any date. Just giving us a date and already, no one is thinking that this just sort of came to my mind, and I certainly have to go here, and I'm going there. $1,200 is not an expensive date, Nancy. It's a cheap date. You gave us a damn cheap date when you sold out in the spring under the HEROES Act, a $1,200 stimulus check. One stimulus check in the spring, knowing darn well it wasn't going to get approved in 24 hours, when people needed multiple checks. We needed a check for every month, and we needed a $2,000 check, not a $1,200 check. So for her to sit back now in September, sorry, in September, with her cushy, $28 million net worth, saying to you, I'm not going to give you a cheap date. You got to take the expensive date, which is the $1,200 stimulus check. It really shows a lack of understanding of the situation. To be very frank, what would the president's executive order look like for second stimulus checks? Some of the things we do know, some of the things we don't know. It would likely be $1,200. It would likely be $2,400 for a married couple. It would likely be $500 for dependents. It would likely pay adult dependents and minor dependents. It would pay people on SSDI, SSI, Social Security, and railroad benefits. It may or may not take out for child support. We really don't know. The great thing about an executive order stimulus checks, it would land in your bank account relatively quickly, about 10 days thereafter by electronic means. So all that is really good. The question is, how soon? Ultimately, it has to be the focus of the president. Next week, the focus turns to someone else. Let me get to that news right now before I continue with the executive order in a second. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell speaks next week about COVID-19, stimulus, and more when he goes to Capitol Hill to talk about really what's happening. It's a two-day meeting expected to end on Wednesday, and it will give some clarity about what the Fed is doing going forward, which, as I've been so critical of, is basically nothing. The stimulus debate and the pandemic started in the spring with the Federal Reserve allocating billions of dollars for COVID-19 assistance, relief, however you call it, whether it was the Main Street Lending Program for businesses to go get it, or whether it was massive loans for state and local to go apply for it. Those funds have not been used. Those funds are just sitting there, and nothing has been done. So will the Federal Reserve continue to do this? The market's not concerned the Fed is not going to give us explicit readings. The market is concerned the Fed is not going to give us clear readings on their plans for monetary policy, says Quincy Crosby, chief economist strategist at Prudential Financial. This is making everyone a little bit uneasy because now, as we see, stimulus has not been getting progress in the House or the Senate. Now we don't see whether the Federal Reserve is getting progress with stimulus as well. We see the risk of rate markets is underwhelmed by the guidance provided by the Fed, which would support higher backed interest rates and steeper curves. Big strategist Julian Emanuel says that the situation could turn. Depending on the polls and the economic data, the probability of stimulus rises and falls. Our view is that next week it's just going to be a lot of back and forth with the political for a future extension of the range of the downside. And if the political narrative gets more inflamed, it could stay down. This is what's important for you to understand of why I'm citing the Federal Reserve is because ultimately when we're talking about stimulus, you need to have everyone involved realize the importance of stimulus. Stimulus is not just an issue for people on SSDI, SSI, Social Security, or railroad benefits, but it's also an issue that has to be grasped by financial news networks. It has to be an issue grasped by businesses. And if everyone says, where is that darn stimulus? Everyone, then there is movement. But until that bubble is burst, and until the situation gets more clear, then it's an issue. Channel notes that the Fed's $7 trillion balance sheet has really recently declined by $100 billion. My sense is the Fed is going to keep on saying it's not worried about inflation. The bigger worry is downside risks. So what's coming up next week? Import prices, on Tuesday, import prices, Empire State manufacturing, industrial production. But really, Wednesday is the big day for numbers, economic numbers. Retail sales are released at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. NAHB survey, and then the Fed decision at 2 p.m. Jobless claims, of course, are at 8:30 a.m. Pacific Eastern Standard Time. And then the housing starts is that same minute thereafter. So as you sit here today, is there a hope that there's a stimulus executive order coming, or is it, wishful thinking? I think there's incredible hope that the second stimulus check is coming by executive order, but I don't know what week, and I certainly don't think it's this week. The question is the president trying to push false narratives so much that he may not focus on stimulus checks? Let me give you an issue of false narratives that really hit late this afternoon that is related to COVID-19. This is a really sort of strange report, and it says that a new set of emails from Paul Alexander, a senior advisor to Michael Caputo, HHS's Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs, obtained by Politico, claims that department was trying to control what Anthony Fauci was saying about COVID at media appearances to make it sound better than it is. Fauci was actually asked about these emails, and he says, I don't pay attention to them at all. I mean, anybody knows that they try to tell me what to say publicly. If they know they're saying anything about me, they realize it's a fool's errand. Thank God. Oh, my goodness. No one's ever going to get to pressure me or muzzle me or say anything. So whoever that person is that wrote that memo, it was a waste of an email. Oh, my God. Something refreshing today. Fauci basically said, go pound sand. You can't tell me what to say, and it's not going to happen that way. But my concern is that if there is this narrative of pushing that the COVID-19 is going down, jobs are back, everyone's fine, then will that defeat the focus to get a stimulus package out? No. I think it's a double-edged sword. I think the president plays both hands of the card. He wants to tell the American public that the economy is much better than it is, that COVID-19 is better than it is, when in fact the situation in the same situation he's willing to give you stimulus. I really do believe we're rounding the corner, said Trump at a press briefing minutes ago. Andrea Mitchell asked Anthony Fauci about those remarks. He says, I'm sorry, but I have to agree with that, because if you're looking at the same thing that you just mentioned, the statistics, they're disturbing. What's disturbing is the number of deaths and the number of cases. When you have a baseline of infections, this is Fauci talking, there are 40,000 per day, and you have threats of increase of test positivity in certain regions of the country, such as the Dakotas and Montana and places like that, you don't want to start off already with a baseline that's so high. The more precarious situation is what's happening in the next couple of weeks. And is that a reason why stimulus checks would come out? I mean, this is sort of a reverse way to think of the situation. But if COVID gets worse, is there more reason for this president to send out stimulus checks? Yes. Fauci says that the U.S. will be in a more precarious situation in just a few weeks, and it's a very disadvantage for the U.S. starting from the very beginning. We're at an unacceptably high level to start the fall. Basically, what Fauci is saying is that the prospect of December, especially in Europe and Asia and the United States, is very bad, is high. And so Fauci's worried that we start here now in September and we're at 40,000 cases per day. Our benchmark, our starting point to start the winter, to start the fall, is so high that the situation can get very quickly bad very fast. I just butchered that sentence. Get bad very fast. So the question is that more reason for the president to issue his stimulus checks? Absolutely. So as we sit here today, what does that mean about the weekend? Well, the weekend will have a lot of eyes and ears on a certain group of people, and that is Trump's internal cabinet. You know, they had given us a lot of promises coming into this week. They had told us we're going to have a bill. They told us the bill would have a stimulus checks in it. They told us the bill would be passed by the Senate this week. They told us the bill would be passed by both houses of Congress next week. They told us the stimulus checks would essentially, be done and out within 7 days. In the end, we didn't even have a bill with stimulus checks. And ironically now, the narrative is getting pushed back in their face. Some journalists are starting to report the stories. The number one story currently trending on CNBC tonight is about stimulus checks and why it was not in the stimulus package this week. That is where we are. The problem is that the other side of the story is not getting a lot of reporting on it, and that is the Democrats pushing back on Pelosi. Those reports, those calls by Steny Hoyer to tell Pelosi, you got to do something right now, are not widely reported. They're picked up in one or two news journals, and that's about it, which causes one to concern, where are they focusing their stories on, journalists? Just Bob Woodward's salacious details? In some regards. So with that, the next question is, would stimulus come this weekend? Ironically, I've always said over the weekends, as we come into the weekend, that there's always those talking heads. There's Mnuchin, there's Meadows. There's all those people that appear on Sunday morning news to talk about stuff. And I usually tell you to ignore them because they usually have much of nothing to tell you and just a lot of spin and a lot of hot air. It's actually now that I'm going to tell you the reverse. I think going in this weekend, I want to know where these people are. These people have not answered the American public. They have not told us why they lied to us for over 7 days about what was going to happen this week. And now when it's imploded, are we supposed to just forget about you? Where are these people? Where is Mnuchin? Where is Meadows? Where is Kudlow? Where are these people? Where is Pete Navarro, who no less than 3 weeks ago said, hey, I think the White House should just settle in the middle and just get this done. I think this is ridiculous. Keep on going on. Pete Navarro, a cabinet member to Trump. Where are these people that suddenly have just disappeared, and suddenly we're supposed to forget about any questions for them for stimulus? Oh no. So if you see one of these people appearing on Sunday morning news coming up this weekend, I want you to hit that Twitter, and I want you to go on there, whether it's Jack Trapper, Three's Company. I loved him with Three's Company, or it's Fox Morning News, or it's I don't know, the Huggables channel. I want you to tweet those people and ask them about stimulus, because these people aren't answering anything. It's really quite confusing. But as we start the weekend and we go into an afternoon, what you need to remember and understand is you're going to get stimulus checks. You're going to get a second stimulus package. The question is, will it be piecemeal by executive order, and when will it be piecemeal by executive order? As always, if you like this video and like this channel, then subscribe. We're trying to get to 250,000 subscribers by this weekend. We're almost there. So go to the front of this channel and hit the subscribe button. There's also a bell next to it to hit the alert. I think I butchered that thing where I told you that if you hit the bell or you subscribe, you see a red thing next to your name. I think I'm the only one that can see the red thing. I just don't. So if you can't see, if no one can see the red thing, then I guess I butchered that. It's my bad. I thought when you subscribe and there's a red bell next to it that I see, I thought you see it as well. I guess you don't. You learn something every day. And then like this video, it helps with the algorithm. Morning to LALATE was a lot of fun, and there's a lot of stuff coming up. And I'm trying to stay on top of the story. And it's on days like this that the story becomes even more complicated when the people that are supposed to be telling you what's going on, Mnuchin and Meadows, are hiding out. As always, stay informed, stay focused, and stay motivated. Coming up next is Hazard Pay. As always, stay with LALATE and have a great afternoon.